Hey guys, so welcome back. So a while back, if you remember, I had a box opening of a number of items that I'd gotten from a seller in Ukraine. It had been mentioned by Shango066, and I got a number of radios and a few other things. And in the first unboxing, I had two Soviet-era radios, and also in there was a Soviet-era MANTLE clock that I thought would be interesting to take a look at. I believe it's a Vesna. I'll pop up here, the description of that the seller had on the site when I bought this, and it'll maybe give you a little bit of background on it. I understand that when it has a hook on it like this, it's called a carriage clock, which is kind of, I guess, trivia for you. It had a key for it, and let's take a look at the back side. And let's see if you can see the markings in the back. Yes, it's Soviet era. And we've got a couple of openings here, and I know by turning this, it opens some shutters so you can keep the dust out. And in there we got a couple of adjustments. No, I can't read this, but we'll see what these things do. So this one, I get on there, wants me to turn it counterclockwise. And it feels like that's maybe the mainspring winder, and I'm not going to push it any further than that. It's probably all the way up. We'll see. This one here. Okay, let's see if that's adjust. There's no alarm on this, I don't believe. So this is, see if that's adjusting the time here a little bit. Yeah. All right. So that's how you set the time. Okay. All right, so I thought we'd take a look inside of this thing and see if it's moving any at all. I seem to remember that the write-up said that it wasn't running properly or something. So I don't remember, but we'll take a look inside and see how this thing looks when we take these little screws out. So hang on, we'll get into this. It'll be a little something different. We'll see what we got inside. Okay, let's take a look and see what we have inside here. Okay, the movement is held in place with 3 screws or three clamps of some kind. I believe that before we could take the movement out, we're going to need to remove the hands. So I have to figure out how to get into the hands here. I don't know if that just unscrews or not. I'm going to take some time to try not to break this, and we'll see how that comes out. But let's just take a look at what we have in here. I guess this is trying to tell me that the balance is under here, and I can see the balance and the regulator, and that might be the escapement. So why don't we open this thing up and see what we have inside here. Okay, let's take a close look here together. So we have a balance with the, I'll show you around here a little bit. So we got a balance here. We've got a regulator arm. We've got a wheel here. Do I see an escapement of some kind? It must be right in here because the balance will be tripping on either side of the forks that release the escapement wheel, but I don't see it from where I am. Maybe right down inside there. Let me get some, excuse me, let me get some magnification on so I can see. Yeah. Yeah, the escapement wheel, or the escape wheel, is right down. It's not this gear here you see. It's down underneath it, right down in there. I don't know if you can see it. Try to see if you can see it. There's another little wheel down there. If you look, it's got forks on it, and so there's teeth on it, and so there'll be a pallet fork in here. This is I think it's called a lever type escapement. So there's a pallet fork in there that's kind of T-shaped. It's got a couple of maybe jewels that go off of here, and it comes down, and there's a little fork that's driven on both sides by this balance. The hairspring is in there. I can see it. I guess the question is, do I dare see if this thing will start to move? Well, of course. You give it a little puff of air and see if it starts to move. No, that didn't work. Let's try to get a little more encouragement. Okay, did you see that moving? I see the balance wheel moving. I do not see the pallet fork tripping the, oh yeah, okay, the escapement just worked. Okay, let me see, okay, here's where the mainspring is located, is within this barrel. All right, let me see if I can put a little bit of wind on this, see if it'll take anything. Make sure I've got my rotation direction set right. So I want to go counterclockwise. All right, where's my key? See if this wants to move at all. It may be all the way wound up. That's it. It doesn't want to go any further. Yeah. So it's got a jam in here somewhere. But it looks like the balance spring is okay. I know some of you guys are wincing when you see me do this with my fingers. Look at it going. I saw the escape wheel move a few times, but it didn't keep going. So there's too much drag in here, and the impulse from the I'm going to say that the impulse from the pallet fork going back and forth isn't enough to keep everything going. So I think what we're going to do is open this thing up and see if we can get in there and clean this and lubricate it and see if we see anything that's broken inside, and just see what we get. We may have a lot of in-shake on some of these things to where they just won't move in their pivots anymore. They don't have jewels like a lot of wristwatches would have, but you can see where the oiling would be done. And let me just see if I can figure out how to get this thing apart without destroying it. I can take it out of the case. I don't think I need to do that, but we'll see. So let me figure out how to get the face off, and I'll bring you back. It just turns. Okay, is there like a tab for snapping on? I'm going to try a little bit of prying, but I think before I do that, I'm going to try to do it somewhere where it won't show too bad. These come off. So I have to unscrew this from the inside. So it looks like I can take the base off from the bottom, so we'll do that. So that's off. I believe that's pronounced Vesna. I believe that's pronounced Vesna. I can't read what that they're saying. It's numbers. May have been a model number. I don't know. Okay. You can kind of see what the finish used to be like. Quite glossy. Okay. All right, let's see if that gives us a clue how to get into here. No. All right, so it looks like what I'm going to try to do is do a little prying, and this would have been my choice anyway to where to do the prying so that if I cause any damage it won't show maybe. I want to get something to help me. Hang on. See, all right. Yep, that's what it took. Just a little bit of a pry. And the dial's off. Okay, that could be cleaned a little bit. See if we can find someplace safe in this place of mine. Put it over here on top of an oscilloscope. Okay. So we've got like a little pin to pull to get the minute hand out. Also there's these little dots around here. They look like they're nails though. At first I thought maybe they were luminous points, but they're not. Okay, I'm going to go in there and get that little pin out. I'm not going to try to look like Shango here. I'm going to put some gloves on because I want to put fingerprints inside of here. So let me get the gloves on. I'll be back. Okay, I got my gloves on. So let's see if we can figure out how to get the hands off. As I mentioned, there's a, if you see it, there's a little pin that goes across. And I'm assuming that it's tapered. And it looks like it's went in this way. So I'm going to try to push it out that way. What should I use to do that with? Something that when it slips, it'll put a big scratch on everything. That would be my choice. Let's see. Let's see why I wanted to put gloves on. I don't want to put fingerprints on the dial. That budge. That did it. Let's see, I've got it at 1 o'clock. Get the pin out. Okay, will this just lift off easy? Probably not, right? Okay, it's not moving with the minute hand is separate from it. Alright. I know this is tedious, guys, but I'm trying not to cause any more damage than I have to. I'm sure there's a wonderful tool for this for 120 bucks. I don't think that's working out for me. Let's see what else can I try. Come in slowly. It's like some corrosion or something on here. It's just, there we go. So that's off. Okay, now, minute hand should just lift right up. And it's stuck on too. Yeah, there's some kind of corrosion on there that's just being difficult. I'm just trying to take my time and not damage things. Okay, we're almost there. Whew. Okay, there's our minute hand off. Think the hour hand's going to come off okay? Or the same old thing? Got it. Okay. He said. All right. So that was at 1 o'clock. I'm probably going to cut that out and most of that in edit. So what I did was, this is on this bushing, and the bushing has got a split in it. As you can see right there. Oh, there's one on both sides. I didn't realize that. So I just went in there with a screwdriver and cranked open on that until I get it to release. And what I'll do is when I put this back on, I'll just give it a little bit of a squeeze to make it it's just a friction fit. You're going to have the cover on there. There's going to be nothing pushing on it after it's put on there. So it doesn't need much, you know. This doesn't have to be put on there like, I shouldn't be fighting this much to get it off. Okay. Hands are off. Major milestone there. Okay. I may move to another workbench. I can't work on a clock in this environment. But anyway, let's see what we have. I did it without damaging anything. Okay, now we got some clamps to release. And they're held on with nuts. Alright, so it's just a nut on a stud, it looks like. The stud itself may back out, but not with a nut on there. So what I'm going to do is see if I've got a driver that'll go onto these. Looks like I'm going to need to get one of these nuts out to see what size it is. It's very close to 5 millimeters. So I need something to get in there to get onto those flats that maybe I like a type of plier that maybe doesn't open like that, but maybe opens more like that. Like these. Okay. That I also got from my guy in Ukraine. So let's see if we can get one of these loose and get it out. And then we'll see what size it is if we can get on there. Yeah, these are nice because you can get on there and it doesn't slip off. It grabs on like that and you can turn it. It's turning. And if I get it going enough, I might be able to switch to something smaller, like some needle nose. That was able to break how tight it was. Let me see if I can get in there with something else now. Alright, I got a 5 millimeter socket here. I may just work them all out with the pliers like I did this one, but I want to be able to put them back in and snug them down. It'd be nice if I had a socket. Three sixteenths is too small. Okay. I know 6 millimeters too big. There's a 7/32. $7/32, kids. That's it. And what do you know? Imperial. That's like nuts from the Empire. All right, let's take the movement out. I don't know where the other nut went. Okay. Now, careful with this too now. All right, now we're finally into the heart of this thing, or have the heart out anyway. So this is a typical clock escapement, or clockworks. Pretty simple. So the main spring is in here. I see a lot of oil all through here. Somebody's oiled this thing. The click is located right in there. Can't see it, it's all like phosphated. I'm going to leave the click engaged because I need to get a let down tool on there to get that to let down the wind on the master. On the I'm going to see if I can fix this without taking this apart. Okay, try not to put my hands on the escapement mechanism. Okay, I can see some dirt in some areas. It's almost impossible for you to see maybe in there. There's some dirt in there. I'm going to try to clean this and oil it just as it sits and see if I can get this thing to loosen up a little bit. There is a little jewel on the balance pivot. I am not going to attempt to do that, I don't believe. There's a cover and a jewel on the escape wheel pivot. I'm going to try to see if I can put some oil in there and just see if I can get it to loosen up some. It may be just dried out, but I can see there's a lot of dirt on that. Sorry. I can see there's a lot of dirt on that pivot in there. So I'm going to see if I can get in there and clean these up a little bit. That's held on by that snap. I'm going to not disassemble it any further than this. I'm just going to see about a simple cleaning and oiling will get this thing to wake up. So we will see. Okay. I see a little jewel for the pallet fork pivot in there as well. All right, so what I'm talking about, okay, sorry, a little bit of show and tell here. Focus. Okay, here's the balance. This works like the pendulum on a pendulum clock, and it spins back and forth. And instead of using gravity and the mass of the pendulum swinging back and forth, it has a hairspring in there. It's like a little spiral, and this thing will kick back and forth, and it continues to oscillate because there is spring tension behind the escape wheel that's down inside there. And what happens is this swings all the way full stroke. There's a little pin in there that hits a T-shaped piece. How can I explain this? A little T-shaped piece, and it wants to snap back and forth in different positions. And so as this thing goes back and forth, it kicks it this way and that way. And there's a couple of little, they're called pallets, that engage the spokes on the wheel, and it goes like this. And every time it goes there, it adds an impulse. And it's not adding impulse into the clock, it's adding an impulse to keep the balance spinning. So as it does that, it keeps adding the kick to keep that balance wheel going back and forth. And as it does that, it works together with the escape wheel and lets out incrementally the wind on the spring as it goes. And as it does that, because of the gear ratios in here, it drives the hands and drives the, whether you see hours or minutes. All right, so we can see the mainspring catch there inside the barrel. This assembly looks like it comes off. That'd be nice to do so I don't worry about damaging it here on my sloppy bench. Maybe I can take this whole escapement off. How would I do that? This wheel is in the way. These two guys here are what's holding that to the base. If I took those two off, then I might be able to slide that off, but I'm sure you're all holding your breath. If I do that, then this thing is going to go crazy because there's be nothing holding this back anymore. There's nothing back holding the mainspring back. What's holding it back is through all the gear reductions, that little escape wheel and these little teeth. The fact that that escape wheel can't spin is what's holding that back. So I cannot remove that unless I let all the load off of here. In order to do that, you would have to go in there, release the tension on this, and release the click that's in there on that ratchet wheel. Now if you do that with the wind-up key, you're looking for a recipe to have your fingers broken, because it will spin and that wheel will hurt you and it'll go too fast. They make a tool called a letdown tool. I don't have one because I just never wanted to spend the money on one of those things. If I decide I need to let this down, I will make something. I know what I can do. I can make something for that that allow me to let down the tension on the mainspring, so then I can take this off and maybe get a little better cleaning on the escapement mechanism. But first, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put that plastic cover back onto here. I'm going to try to oil the rest of the clock, and then I'm going to take the cover back off and see if there's anything I can do to maybe do something on this without removing it. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe we'll look at fabricating a letdown tool, let this barrel down so that I can take that off and clean it a little bit better. And I'm not currently planning on taking the rest of this apart, taking these two plates off and releasing all these wheels. I mean, this is not a particularly complicated clock. I've seen worse, but there's no point doing it. I can probably get to most of what I need to get to. If I tear it down that far, I'll throw everything in ultrasonic cleaner and all that, but I'm not going to do that, I don't think. I think what we're going to do here is going to work. Okay, I'm going to put that plastic cover back on. Hey Fix, how do you know which screw goes where? Well, I don't have a whole lot of them out right now. I can get an idea of the size by looking at the place where it goes, so it doesn't have to be that complicated. And you master clockmakers are watching me, maybe. Be gentle. I'm not a professional at this. Make helpful comments, please. That'll help us all. Somebody else may have one of these and come this way one day and see some guy in Texas working on a Soviet-era clock that he bought from a guy in Ukraine and want to know, how do I get this thing running again? Help him out. Okay, so that's on. So I used to have some of this gear years ago and I lost it. So I went and ordered a oil and clean kit. And I think you can get this at various places. And it comes with a bunch of stuff. I lost a lot of my tools and my gear in a, let's just call it a natural disaster, several years ago. And I've lost a number of things that probably got thrown out en masse. And so I've had to replace a number of things. Okay. So if you haven't seen one of these things, it's pretty cool. You got a very nice clock oil. It's a synthetic. It's not made with whale oil or anything like that. You've got a little cup to put the oil in. What's key is that you've got these little guys here for applying a very small amount of oil, much less than you get as a drip off of a dropper or out of a syringe like oiler that I use on my radio components. So these come in various sizes. There's some grease that you would use if you're doing a pendulum clock that's got a heavy weight hanging on a pivot, and it's got a loop in it. But I've got my magnifiers I wear, but you can pop this in your eye and maybe see things a little better. I don't need to do that because I've got my visor here. So okay, let's see what we can see. Get in here and clean. I don't know how much you're going to be able to see. I'll see what I can show you. So the idea is you take this piece of wood. Right, and so let me back up. So all of these gears that are in here, okay, they have a pivot. Think of this as the axle, and this is like a pilot bearing on your transmission going into the pilot bearing in your flywheel. Okay, so in here you could have a bushing, or it could be just a hole that's bored in here. Sometimes valuable clocks would have a bushing that you can replace, or you could have somebody bore it out and put a bushing in there. That's not what this kind of clock is. But you can go in there with this piece of sharp wood and just go in there and see if you can dig out any dried oil in there. Now, I don't know if you saw that, but there's a very small amount there that turned it black. Not too bad. Sometimes these things are like belly button lint, you know, just amazing what comes out of there. Can you see me doing this? Okay, so I got those two, this one. I'm seeing, if you see that, I'm getting some dirty oil out. There's not much. It's amazing how little oil are in these things. And it's interesting, I heard somebody point out one time, if you put too much oil in here and it sits here, the drip of oil will form and finally run down here. And as it does that, the way the oil works is as that drip comes down, it'll pull the rest of that oil with it, and it'll pull all the oil out. And you end up with something that doesn't have any oil in it. And you cause this thing to go back and forth in here. And like I say, sometimes it's just metal on metal. This is a brass plate here. And so you got like a steel shaft riding in a brass hole. And you know what that means? It's going to wobble out the brass. And then once that thing gets wobbled out enough to where it doesn't hold the gear straight anymore, then the gears bind and it stops running. Well, this one's pretty gross. If you think about the way the gears are in these things and the gear reductions and the loads you're talking about, you look at that little pallet fork thing I was showing earlier on the escape wheel. You look at what the gear reduction must be. In some of these locations, a small amount of additional grease may be enough to stop a clock, right? So this grease dries out. If you have a pendulum clock that's not in a case, it can be a lot worse because the grease will grab dust that gets up in there, and these things almost become abrasive. Okay, I don't know if I can get in here. This one, the mainspring pivot has been greased a little bit heavy, but it's still loose and liquid. Yeah, what I was saying is that grease, dries out, and all that particulates that were in there then becomes like abrasive. Okay, I think I got all those points there. I could probably do a little bit better on some of these. Maybe need to sharpen this some. And yes, obviously the best way to do this is to take it all apart and put it in a ultrasonic cleaner. I mean, look at this one. I don't know if you can see that. I mean, look at all that. You see that coming in there? So that little divot that I'm digging all this dirt out of is meant to be like a cup for holding oil. And if you put the right amount of oil in there, it'll stay. And what happened is a little bit of oil that was in there somehow got all this dust and dirt in there, and then it congealed. And that there would have been enough to stop this clock probably, depending on where it is in the gear train. Like I say, the best way to do this is take this all apart and put it in ultrasonic, but if I can get it working without it, that's fine for me. And let's see if that's got a lot of end shake in it. And it's got quite a bit. You can see the inside. I kind of knew we were heading into trouble on this one because you look at right in here. See the grease in here, or oil. I may sharpen my stick up here in a little bit and see if I can get in there and get as much of this out as I can. Okay. Where was I? Did this one? This one looks okay. This one needs it. And can you see the amount of junk that just came out of that? Look at that. I'm hoping that the pivots and things that are underneath that plastic cover and the escapement, that the plastic cover kept it clean. So the oil may have dried out, but not, you know, got all this junk in it. So maybe I can just refresh the oil and it'd be okay. I mean, look at all this. Are you seeing the junk I'm pulling on this? Now I'm thinking this has enough force on it in this location right here near the mainspring that this much gunk wouldn't prevent it from running, but I could be wrong. Alright, I'm going to sharpen this stick up just a little bit and see if I can do some final cleanup. This doesn't really take that long. The hardest part about this was getting the hands off because somebody glued them on, looked like to me, or the corrosion just grabbed it and not let it go. I think those all look okay. Okay, I want to get to oiling and we'll see if we can get this thing to start to move. It's enough oil to last for a long time. Okay. These have different sized tips on them. There's not just a pin. It's got a flat, and it's got some little serrations that hold the oil drop. Okay. I don't know how well anybody can see what I'm going to do here. These larger ones could probably use a larger tool. Yeah, we'll use a larger tool there. Let's see about this one. Let's try this one. Yeah. Okay. See a small amount of oil I'm adding there, and capillary action just draws it right in. Camera stopped. All right, can you see what I'm doing here? I've got a small drop on my tool here. Probably could use a larger applicator than this as well. Let me switch to a larger one. Okay. All right. Let's get into here. These could have been cleaner, I admit. If it has trouble keeping time accurately enough for me, I might take it back apart and put it in the ultrasonic, but for right now I think I'm doing okay. don't know if you can see that wicking around the barrel arbor. It took it right in. It chased all around the inside of it. It's just capillary action, surface tension, spreading it out around that whole area. Okay. It takes so little oil. All right. So the last thing is whether this thing will start running. Don't want to yet, so I'm going to go after oiling a little bit inside where the escapement is. So let me get my tools and clean them up a little bit, so I'm not bringing in any of that really dirty stuff into the picture. Okay, now let's get into back into the escapement area. Maybe my imagination, I think that went just a little bit longer. We'll have to see. Okay, I'm going to not attempt to clean these. I'm just going to attempt to put some oil on the escape wheel. Now I think the problem I'm going to have is I believe I'm not looking at actually the pivot, if you will, in the center of the balance. That should be a cap jewel that's held on by those two very small screws and a plate that's on top of it. So what I'd have to do is take that off, take those jewels out, clean them, re-oil them, reassemble them, and put them in there, and then put that plate back on that holds the regulator adjustment. I'm not going to attempt to do that right now. I'm going to try to just put oil in here. I'm going to hope that it's basically clean. Okay, let's get after that. Look, it's trying to go, just sitting there. Can you see it? Come on, baby. Look at it. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Let's get you some oil. Look at it. It's trying to go. Save me, save me. Okay. That's too big. Just right. All right. Now see, if I put my head right here, is that blocking your view? No, okay. All right, here we go, kids. Can't see the oil cup. Back this up. I mean, that is a very small amount of oil on there. Okay. I'm going to try to first do the pallet fork pivot, because once the balance starts spinning, I won't want to get in there. I probably already have enough in there. Go, baby. I see you trying. It's trying. Okay. And that may have a cap jewel there too. I can't tell. It's underneath this plate. And I can't upset that plate until I let down the mainspring. I'm very certain that has a cap jewel on this. So I'm going to go ahead and put oil there just in case it finds its way around there. I kind of doubt it. I don't see how it could. All right. It's trying. It's trying. I need to oil the other sides of these pivots that are face down against the main plate, and I can't get in there to them unless I take this thing apart. Almost there, huh? Let's turn my phone off. A bit of interruption. My sweet wife brought me a sandwich. I'll have to eat it later. All right. Well, it wants to go, but it's still not quite cleaned and oiled enough. So I'm probably going to have to get this off to oil the other sides of these pivots that I'm working on here. I'm working on the escape wheel pivot, one half of it, and I lubricated the pallet fork pivot. Let's see if I can get creative. I'm going to try something. I'm going to try to snake this all the way down through inside of here, inside of the escape wheel. See what I'm doing? I'm going to try to get through all of here and get all the way inside. Put an oil on the base of the escape wheel pivot down there. And we'll see if that will get in there. It actually sounds like it's hitting on something. To avoid taking this apart, I'm going to try some things I probably shouldn't do. Put some oil down at the base of the balance pivot. And I'm going to try. Can I go in here? Doesn't look like it. Probably shouldn't. We're just messing up the hairspring. Okay. It's certainly trying to go more than it was before. Keep going. Keep going. Can you see the escape wheel turning around in there? Keep going. It's trying. Trying to get to focus. There we go. Can you see the escape wheel in there turning? The amplitude is awful. I'm going to let it run like that and see if maybe the oil will find its way around. Can you hear it ticking? Hold it up to the microphone.
definitely running. Okay, I'm going to put the cap back on this. I'm going to let it run. I'm going to eat something to eat, and then we'll come back and see if it's still running. I'm not going to screw the cap on. I'm just going to set it on there. Like this. Okay, I'm going to go set this down. Go get a bite. And we'll see if it's still running when I get back. Okay, it's been quite a while later. And I think it quit running before I left. I think what I must be having is, I think there's some dirt in here on the gears. If I can get this thing going again. Let's see here. You guys can see this. You can see that, right? Okay. Try to be careful here. Okay, it's running. Now, this gear right here, is the one that moves as a result of the escape wheel turning. Where does it want to go? Let's go this way. If I give that a little help, this thing really runs. So what I'm doing is putting a little bit of load on this. So I think what's happening is, I think this mechanism in here is fine. I'm not going to bother taking this apart. And you can hear that thing ticking away. So I think the problem is, maybe that shaft feels okay. So if I look in here, this sprocket, right here, sprocket, gear, whatever you want to call it, pinion, there's a lot of dirt around here. And if I look at it, I can see that that thing is really dirty. It's like somebody got in here and oiled inside of here, and I believe they did. I don't think you're supposed to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this guy up and see if that doesn't free this mechanism up enough to where the it'll run. I mean, look at it go now. I think the power from the mainspring is not able to get through to it. So I'm providing a little bit of force now on that. And the other teeth look okay. So I want to see if I can clean that up. You can see sorry. I'm going to clean that up. If you can see, there's a lot of dirt in there. I want to clean this guy up. I want to put the cover back on here before I screw up. And I certainly have the capability to do that. Okay. It's running. It's still running. So it definitely helped. Okay, I'm going to set this down and we'll see how long it'll run for. Let's see. I don't want it to rest on the barrel so that the barrel can turn. Can I set it like this? It's in there ticking over. Okay, well, it's been about an hour, and it's still ticking. So all I really did was I just cleaned out the pivot points where it goes through the brass plates. I found that after I cleaned it all that there was more dirt than I expected. Was right down in here. Okay, so let's get some fundamentals here for everybody. All right, so this is where the mainspring is, and you see the end of it caught in a tab right here. This mainspring is under pressure, so unless you let this spring pressure off of this, and you have to do it carefully. You can't take these plates off or everything's just going to fly everywhere and you're going to get hurt and you're going to damage this. And the other thing I was thinking about doing was taking this escapement system off of here because it'll come off of this plate. I may do that someday, but if I do that, I need to be able to let the pressure off this spring. I'm not going to do that today, but I could do it. Now, you can use this to wind it, of course. You don't use this to let the spring down because this will spin at a very fast rate and you're going to get hurt, okay? There is ways that you can make a tool to use this, but I'm not going to cover that in this video. You can also make a tool by using, did I bring it in here? Let's see, where is it? This is the chuck out of a tap and die set. I have one. I have an old one from my old Craftsman one that has a rod that goes through here, a T handle that you can't use for this purpose. But this is just a cheapo set I'd gotten at Harbor Freight several years ago. And see, the problem is this has a square shaft. You can't use a socket on this, a 6-point or something like that. But what you can do is you can take a tap chuck and squeeze it onto here. Now I'd have to expand out the collets on here. Of course, you'd have this on, right? So you'd have this, well, you'd have that on here. You'd get this onto here, and then you would lock that down onto that shaft. But then what you'd have to have is a way to hold on to this and control it. So what a lot of people do is they put a handle on here, okay, about yay far, and put a pin through here to hold it. And then you put it in place, release the pawl, and let it spin out in your hand with your hand as friction. I may do that someday. Anyway, this thing's still working like this. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and put it in a case. But as I said, here's where the mainspring is inside this. Okay, and you can't take this out under spring force. You have to let it down. The barrel is actually called the first wheel. It's engaging next. Use this clean side. So it engages next this shaft right here. So this is the second wheel. Not as in seconds, but as in the second after the first. Then you have the third wheel, which is right here. Now the third wheel comes right up through the middle up to here. Okay, so that drives the minutes. And then it comes from here, from the third wheel, engages right here. Okay, and that's the fourth wheel. The fourth wheel comes up and engages this shaft here. So let me see if I got that right. We got first, second, third, fourth, fifth wheel. And the fifth wheel is not actually the escape wheel. The escape wheel is one over. That's usually the fifth wheel. But this is the fifth wheel in this movement. Okay. Now the one that was causing the most problem, I think, was the fourth wheel. It looked like to me that somebody had really gotten in here and put a lot of grease in here. And so what I did was went into here, sharpened my pegwood up some more, and really got in here and cleaned that out a lot more. Okay, I'm still getting stuff out of there. And to clean this properly, you really do need to let the mainspring down and take this thing apart, throw it all into a ultrasonic cleaner and get this all cleaned up. But this does a pretty decent job. Okay, so I got all of that off, and then I've lubricated these points. Very small amount of oil, as you saw. And this thing is still ticking. You can hear it. Okay, I'm going to put this back together and put it back in the box. All right, cleaned up the face a little bit, got the fingerprints off it. I had a couple on there. So yeah, there we go. Do I want to take the handle off? No. Okay, so it needs to go in. Oh, it's interesting. Did somebody leave their calling card right here? I learned to turn things over. Haha. Does that say 71? September of 71, maybe? Is that a 9? 9/71? I don't know. Okay. Alright, so it wants to go in like this. Now I know that's correct because the back goes on like this. This is the top. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me back you up. Okay, we know it goes like that because the back goes on like this. This is the top. There's our CCCP logo, and then those are the two attach points that are here and here. So we know we got that right. And we're engaged to the faceplate fine. Okay, let's put those nuts back in. We know we got the right size driver now. It's a 7/32. Any reason for this to be tight? No. Why pull the insert out of the plastic? Make sure it's down snug, that's all. Okay. The movement is in. Okay, let's put the, what do we want to do now? Let's put the bottom on. This little backup strip has got a little bit of an arc to it, so it'll go in with the arc down. I wondered if these were, if brass polish would polish these up. I believe not. I believe these are brass plated, so I'm not going to attempt anything on them. So they're going to pass up through here. Alright, there's always one missing. Where'd you go? He'll show up. And it's still ticking. So now what I'm going to do is put the back on so I don't run the risk of damaging this thing. So this thing works pretty well. It feels kind of loose when it's in the... Sorry, this works pretty well. It's tight here, but it's kind of loose here, but I think that's okay. I don't want it to be where you can't move it. So we need to put those little screws on. These are a little bit tricky, I bet. Okay. Escapement's ticking along very happily there. Can you see it? Last look. It's ticking along real happy. Now I may take this off and mess with the regulation, but I want to just get it back, put it back together. Okay, I found this. All right. It's all looking okay. You know what's next, right? So the minute is driven by this middle shaft, and then the hour is on this other shaft that's on the outside, and it press fits on. Since this doesn't have a a date function on it or something like that. It doesn't really matter where I set them, as long as when the minute, which is tagged to the square shaft, is pointed right up at 12, then I've got the hour hand right at an hour. So let's see if I can work that in reverse a little bit. So here's the minute hand, and it's going to go like that, and boy, it's pointed right at the hour right now. So I'm going to take the hour hand and push it right on. And maybe it still has enough grip, I don't need to squeeze it. And now I put the minute hand on. Now I'll take the little this shaped piece and put it on. And that needs going far enough to where I can get the pin through. Use this. That's too big. I think it's okay. Let's see if the pin will go. Okay, I'm going to lay it down. I better not let it fall in the hole. Let's see. This pin has a taper on it. I don't know if you can see that. That little pin is definitely bent. I don't think I really need it, but I'll try to see if I can straighten it out. Okay. Okay, the little cross pin is in. All right, let's put the faceplate back on. Go get some glass cleaner and clean that glass up first. Be right back. Minute hand's moving. You know how long it's been since I went to go find the glass cleaner, right? That looks better, huh? All right. Don't think it matters which way it goes. I should just press on. All right. So there we have it. Let's set the time, and we'll see how it does. What is my expectations? Probably not too great, to be honest. In order for this thing to really keep time well, I think what I'd need to do is get myself a letdown tool, take out the mainspring. I might not have to take the mainspring out of the barrel, because that's another problem. But then take this thing apart and put it in ultrasonic, and then it'll perform about as best as it can. It still might not ever be that great, but anyway. So let's see. We set the time on this one, and we turn it this way. All right. So it is currently. I'll check my phone. It's a pretty neat looking clock, I think. So, where's my phone? Oh, I don't have it. Okay. Looks like it's about 5 till 7. Let me go get my phone and find out. Right there. Okay. We know it's got a full wind. Shut the shutters. And there you go, guys. A Soviet era clock that I procured from a fellow in Ukraine. It's a Vesna, and it was a lot of fun to clean this thing up and get it working again. It definitely works. We'll see how well it works, but it's good for a quick fix. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.
Listen to the Eagle online at Houston'sEagle.com or on the Houston's Eagle app, and you'll be streaming Houston's only classic rock.
Want everything on your used car buying checklist? Then check out Ford Blue Advantage. How about a gold certified 172-point inspection? Check. A comprehensive limited warranty backed by Ford? Check. A Carfax report and a 14-day 1,000-mile money-back guarantee? Check and check. Ford Blue Advantage. Use it.
Not too bad. Have a good 4th of July, y'all. Take care.